Hey there, how's it going? I hope you're doing great. I'm your storyteller and I'm here to take you deep into some chilling horror tales, straight from the dark side of roommates. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now, so drop it in the comments. When you're ready, find a comfortable spot, dim the lights, relax. And let's step into the shadows together. Jessica didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. Not after seeing Clara, her best friend, staring blankly from a room surrounded by mirrors, and the masked figure who called himself the man behind the glass. The video haunted her even when her eyes were closed. Her reflection had never looked so unfamiliar. Daniel sat by her side, scanning through the corrupted phone, trying to salvage any data that could be used to trace the origin. But every trace had been scrubbed clean. Whoever this was, he was 10 steps ahead. Over the following days, Jessica began to change. Her fear was no longer silent. It had sharpened into awareness. She noticed patterns, how mirrors seemed to react when she walked past, how her phone screen sometimes flickered just before a message arrived, how certain strangers on the street seemed to pause when passing her, only for a moment. It was like she was being watched from multiple layers of reality. Daniel's investigation uncovered something chilling. There had been a psychiatric institute near where Bill Harper used to work. St. Regina's. Officially shut down a decade ago after a patient escape led to multiple staff deaths. That same institute had been involved in an experimental psychological conditioning program, using mirrored environments to control behavior. And deep in its records, one name kept appearing in the shadows of every patient file: Project Architect. There was no actual name tied to the file. Just symbols, codes, and mirror sketches. Jessica and Daniel drove out to the ruins of the old asylum, past rusted gates and overgrown fields. Inside, the place reeked of mold and abandonment. But something felt wrong. Too clean. Parts of it looked recently used. New footprints in the dust. Battery-operated lights flickering in the hallway. They followed the path down into the basement. There, they found a chamber. The walls were lined with shattered mirrors. Each shard angled toward a chair in the middle of the room. On the chair, a mannequin sat with Clara's jacket draped over its shoulders, and her voice playing on loop from a speaker hidden nearby, asterisk, I see you. I see you, asterisk over and over. Jessica fell to her knees. Daniel pulled her back. Just then, a red light blinked on one of the mirror shards. It was a hidden camera. Someone had been watching them live. Jessica smashed it with a flashlight, but it was too late. Her phone buzzed again. Welcome to the reflection chamber. You've finally seen my mind. Asterisk. They ran from the building and handed everything over to the FBI. But the agency warned them, the architect, or whoever was behind this, had no digital footprint. Every trace vanished within seconds of discovery. He had resources. He had reach. And now, he was growing bolder. Jessica stopped going to school. The FBI assigned her temporary protective custody. But even under surveillance, the attacks continued. Officers reported interference in their equipment, body cams glitched, radios picked up static filled with strange reversed whispers. One agent claimed he saw his own face smiling back at him in a mirror, while he wasn't. That night, Agent Morris, one of the officers assigned to Jessica, went missing. His room was locked from the inside. When they broke the door, they found only his badge, his shoes neatly placed, and a message scrawled on the mirror. One step closer to becoming me. Asterisk. Jessica began dreaming of mirrors every night. In those dreams, she saw Clara trapped inside one, tapping slowly, trying to speak. But every word came out backward. Behind her stood a tall figure, not moving, just watching. Daniel believed the architect wasn't alone anymore. He was recruiting. Mentoring. Just like Bill had been his student, there were others. People who had given up reality to live within the architect's twisted reflection of the world. A cult. A digital hive of broken minds. Then came the live stream. It appeared without warning on Jessica's phone. No app. No platform. Just a blank screen, then Clara's face, still, unmoving, staring into the camera. The background looked like an empty apartment. Jessica screamed her name. Clara blinked, then slowly raised her hand, pointing to something behind her. A shadow moved. The masked man stepped into view. His mask was now cracked, revealing only a single eye. He spoke. Clara is your mirror. What you fear, she reflects. What you deny, she absorbs. Soon, she will not need you. Asterisk. The screen cut to static. Jessica lost her breath. Daniel called in every contact he had. The FBI launched a triangulation scan, and for the first time, they got a partial ping. The signal had bounced through multiple locations, but the origin seemed to be within New Orleans. That's where the architect was hiding. They moved quickly. A special unit was formed. Jessica refused to stay behind. She was bait, but she was also the target, and the key. Inside the French Quarter, they tracked a series of tech blackouts in old apartments. And one night, they found it. The reflection nest. Inside an abandoned art studio, they found rooms lined with glass. Dozens of people sat in silence, facing mirrors, wired to small headsets. None of them responded. Their eyes were open. Breathing steady. But their minds, gone. In the central chamber, Jessica found Clara. She sat across from a large mirror. Her reflection smiled, but Clara did not. Jessica reached for her, but her own reflection stayed perfectly still, not matching her movements. That's when the architect stepped out from the shadows. Not masked. No disguise. Just a man. Clean cut. Calm. Young. He looked at Jessica and whispered, asterisk, fear makes people reflect their true selves. You should thank me. Asterisk. Daniel drew his weapon, but the architect raised his hands. He didn't resist. He smiled. It doesn't end here, he said. I've already begun again. They arrested him. Raided his servers. Freed Clara and the others, though most were left psychologically shattered. Clara didn't speak for days. But Jessica had hoped. Until she returned home. That night, after a long shower, Jessica found her mirror fogged. She wiped it clean, only to see herself smiling. But she wasn't smiling. Her reflection moved first. Then the lights flickered. Her phone buzzed with a new message from a number she'd never seen before. The mirror doesn't need the man anymore. It has you now. Asterisk. And her reflection didn't vanish. It stayed. Smiling. Jessica stood frozen in front of the bathroom mirror. Her reflection wasn't just delayed, it was independent. Smiling. Staring. Breathing in sync, but not quite. She backed away slowly, heart pounding in her chest. Behind her, the bathroom was still. But in the mirror, something moved, a flicker in the corner, a shadow slipping out of view. She shut off the lights and ran. Daniel was in the living room, going through reports from the raid in New Orleans. He looked up when he saw her pale face. She couldn't speak at first, only pointed toward the bathroom. When they returned, the mirror was normal. The condensation was gone. Her reflection behaved like it always had. But the message was still on her phone, asterisk, the mirror doesn't need the man anymore. It has you now. Asterisk. Daniel didn't sleep that night. Neither did Jessica. They reviewed every device, every inch of the house. Cameras. Glass surfaces. Even their phones. Nothing suspicious. But something had changed. Jessica could feel it. Like something invisible had crossed over. Something that had been waiting on the other side, had now entered. The FBI kept the architect in isolation. He hadn't spoken since his arrest. He just sat in his cell, staring at the mirror on the wall, smiling at it like an old friend. Doctors evaluated him, but found no clear diagnosis. He showed no signs of distress, no delusions. He just watched. Until one morning, during a routine cell check, they found his mirror shattered, and blood scrawled across the wall. The mask breaks when the mirror learns. Asterisk. Jessica tried to return to some sense of normalcy. Clara had started speaking again, but slowly, carefully, as if she wasn't entirely sure of her own voice. She would stop mid-sentence sometimes, staring into space, blinking rapidly like trying to wake from a dream. Her therapist believed it was a form of psychological disassociation. But Jessica suspected something deeper. She began noticing Clara's odd behavior. Mirroring Jessica's words before she even said them, reacting to things Jessica hadn't done yet. One evening, Jessica tested it. She reached for her glass of water without moving, just thinking about it. Clara handed it to her. Smiling. Silently. That night, Jessica placed a small camera in her own room, pointed at her bed. She wanted to see if anything strange happened while she slept. The next morning, the footage was gone. Erased. All files corrupted except one, a single still image. Her sleeping body. And standing over her, her reflection. Identical clothes. Identical face. But awake. Watching. Daniel started believing what he once thought impossible, that the architect had discovered a psychological technique so powerful, it created alternate behaviors inside the mind. Not possession. Not hypnosis. Something worse. An internal hijack. The creation of a second self. The mirror self. A version of a person created through sustained fear, isolation, and reflection-based psychological feedback. The more time someone spent with mirrors, under emotional stress, the more likely this second self could emerge. It sounded insane. Until Jessica began to lose time. Hours would pass without memory. She'd find herself outside, barefoot, with no recollection of how she got there. Mirrors across the house began cracking, on their own. Messages started appearing on her phone, from herself. I'm awake now. Asterisk. You don't protect me anymore. Asterisk. I want to breathe too. Asterisk. One night, Clara disappeared again. This time, there was no kidnapping. She left on her own. And in her room, Jessica found something chilling, handwritten pages describing a world inside the glass. A dimension where mirror selves lived, studied, copied, and prepared. Prepared to replace. Jessica confronted the FBI with the truth. They dismissed it. Called it psychological projection. Daniel, however, had gone deep into research. He found historical records of similar patterns, back to the 1800s. Cases of people claiming their reflections had turned against them. Old psychiatric texts referring to the split gaze, an event where the human mind divides and begins to reflect independently. These cases always ended the same. The original vanished. Jessica and Daniel started a digital cleanse. All mirrors removed. All cameras disconnected. Only analog tech. Clara was found wandering a church parking lot days later, covered in glass shards, murmuring, asterisk, the mirror lied. He wasn't the master. I am. Asterisk. She was institutionalized. Jessica now knew what had to be done. She had to go back. To the reflection nest. The place where the barrier had thinned. where the mirror world had first touched her. They returned at night. The studio was abandoned, but not dead. Jessica brought nothing reflective. No phones. No glass. Just candles and paper maps. Inside, the walls still hummed. Something alive pulsed beneath the floorboards. In the center of the room, Jessica found a new mirror. Framed in twisted metal. Not broken like the others. This one was whole. Smooth. Clean. She approached it. Her reflection wasn't there. Only darkness. Daniel stayed behind as Jessica stepped closer. A whisper escaped the mirror, asterisk, "You're not her anymore. You're me." Asterisk. Then the glass rippled like water, and Jessica reached out. Her fingers passed through. Behind her, Daniel screamed, but it was too late. Jessica was gone. The mirror went still. And in the corner of the room, a second Jessica stepped out from the shadows. Her face calm. Her smile perfect. Her eyes hollow. She looked at Daniel and whispered, asterisk, she wanted peace. "I want presence." Asterisk. Then she vanished into the night. Daniel stood in the middle of the reflection nest, staring at the mirror that had just devoured Jessica. His hands trembled. The real Jessica had vanished through the glass, and the version that stepped out afterward, her eyes void of emotion, her voice mechanical, was something else entirely. He ran his palm across the mirror's cold surface. Nothing. Solid. Smooth. But his instinct screamed that she was still in there. Trapped. Somewhere. Back at the FBI's temporary field office, no one believed Daniel. They thought Jessica had suffered a psychotic break. She'd run off. Maybe she was dissociating again, like Clara had. Maybe she'd never recovered from what Bill Harper had done to her. But Daniel knew better. He saw what he saw. The thing that came out of the mirror wore Jessica's face, but it wasn't her. It mimicked her voice. Her movements. But it wasn't human. He pulled out the old files he had once dismissed. The ones about the split gaze, the mirror folklore passed down through centuries. Legends that told of an ancient, mirror inheritance, a power transferred through generations, starting as a reflection but growing until it could take over. The architect had only been a vessel, a builder, not the source. The real force had always been older, something that existed beyond the glass. Something that needed hosts. And now, it had Jessica. Meanwhile, the mirror Jessica returned to her aunt's house. Her behavior was flawless. She smiled. Ate. Spoke. But there were cracks in the illusion. At night, she stood motionless in front of mirrors for hours. The clocks in the house stopped working. The cat refused to go near her. And most terrifying, her phone screen showed reflections that weren't hers. Different backgrounds. Different versions of her. As if the device itself was a window into a deeper network of identities. Her aunt noticed something wasn't right. One night, she found her niece whispering to the bathroom mirror, repeating the same sentence over and over, asterisk, "I am the first. I am the first. I am the first." Asterisk. When her aunt asked what she meant, Jessica turned and smiled. "You'll understand soon. We all will." Daniel, desperate for answers, returned to the shattered ruins of St. Regina Psychiatric Institute. Beneath the rubble, he found something the FBI had missed before, a locked archive room, protected by rusted metal and symbols etched in glass. Inside were recordings. Hundreds of them. Surveillance from the 1950s and 60s. Patients locked in mirrored rooms, talking to their reflections, answering questions before they were asked, predicting movements of doctors outside the room. The files were labeled, inheritance trials. Each patient had a code name. Each one ended with a date of departure. All of them had disappeared. And in every final report, a single phrase was typed in red ink. The reflection has crossed. Asterisk. Jessica, inside the mirror dimension, wandered through endless corridors of polished glass. Every wall showed distorted versions of herself, some weeping, some violent, some empty-eyed. Time didn't flow normally. Minutes stretched. Days collapsed. She wasn't alone. There were others, people like Clara. Like Agent Morris. Lost reflections. They whispered warnings she couldn't understand, fragments of speech echoing backwards and inside out. She heard her own voice, coming from nowhere and everywhere. You are the final key. You are the mirror's end. Asterisk. Then, she saw it, a grand chamber made entirely of rotating glass panels, like a maze of infinite angles. At its center stood a figure cloaked in mirror shards, a crown made of bent silver and cracked reflections. It didn't speak, but its presence spoke in her bones. She knew who this was. The original. The first inheritor. He lifted a hand and pointed at her heart. And she began to forget her name. Back in the real world, Mirror Jessica visited Clara at the facility. She stood beside her friend's bed and whispered things no one else heard. Clara's eyes fluttered. Her pulse slowed. Then she opened her eyes, and they were different. Too still. Too mirrored. Clara smiled and whispered, "We are waking up." Daniel finally broke into the FBI's digital vault using a backdoor left by a rogue analyst. He retrieved the unedited security footage of the architect's final day in custody. At 3:03 a.m., the architect stood up, walked to the mirror, and smiled. His reflection smiled back, asterisk asterisk, but it wasn't him, asterisk asterisk. The reflection reached out. And then, there were two. The architect turned and walked calmly out of frame. The reflection stayed behind, in the cell. Frozen. Lifeless. Just an image. Daniel's blood ran cold. He realized the terrifying truth, it wasn't a person jumping through mirrors. It was the reflection learning to escape, asterisk asterisk copying consciousness. Replacing the original. And now, Jessica's body, her voice, her memories, they were being used by something born in glass. And she wasn't alone. That night, Daniel traced a pattern of electrical disruptions and glass-related disturbances across 7 states. Every one of them ended in a hospital or mental institution. The pattern wasn't random. It was a spread. A contagion. Jessica's phone, left behind in the FBI evidence room, powered on by itself. A new video autoplayed. Jessica, real Jessica, sat in the mirror chamber, eyes red, skin pale, whispering, asterisk, it's choosing. The next successor. The mask is only the beginning. The reflection wants a world. Asterisk. Then static. Daniel looked into the blackened screen and saw something staring back at him. Not himself. Something darker. His own phone buzzed. A message. Your reflection is waiting. Time to inherit. Asterisk. He dropped the phone, but his own shadow didn't move. It kept standing. Facing him. Smiling.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe our channel, give a like and share it with others who love suspense and thrill. And most importantly, turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next chilling tale. Your support means everything.